Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're tackling some seriously cool research. It's about Fragile X syndrome, the most common genetic cause of autism spectrum disorder.
Yeah.
And get this, scientists might be close to like a major breakthrough, like understanding and how to treat it. We're going to be looking at this study that used mice
Okay.
to kind of explore the link between how they communicate early on and then how they act socially later as adults.
Interesting.
And there's this drug, it's called bumetanide, that might play a surprising role. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this research is really fascinating. It's really pushing the boundaries of what we know about Fragile X
Right.
and neurodevelopment in general.
Yeah, for sure. So this study, it was published in Genomic Psychiatry,
Okay.
and it was from, the University of Texas Health Science Center at San Antonio
Wow.
and Hirosaki University in Japan.
Nice.
It's a big collaboration.
Yeah.
And it all starts with these mice.
Oh?
They weren't just any old mice, they were specially bred.
Oh, specially bred. How so?
Yeah. So they used something called a congenic mouse model.
Right.
Mhm.
So basically what they did is they took mice and over generations they bred them to isolate the specific mutation, the gene mutation that causes Fragile X.
So it's like they wanted to get rid of all the other
Exactly.
athletic noise.
Yeah. They wanted to be absolutely sure that any differences they saw in these mice were because of that single Fragile X mutation.
Right.
And not because of some other, random genetic quirk.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
But why use mice at all?
Well, studying genes
Yeah.
and brain development directly in humans is super complex, both practically and ethically, right?
Yeah, totally.
Mice, on the other hand, share a surprising amount of genetic similarity with us.
Huh.
And their development, it happens much faster than ours, so it's really useful.
It's like fast forwarding.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a fast forward button
On evolution.
on understanding how genes work. And then plus, we can study them in a controlled lab environment.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So yeah, mice are incredibly valuable for this kind of research.
So what did these special mice show us? What they reveal?
Well, they revealed something remarkable.
Okay.
The researchers, they found that by analyzing the sounds these mice made as pups, like their early communication, if you will,
Oh, wow.
they could actually predict their social behavior later in life.
Wait, hold on. You're saying
Yeah.
they could listen to baby mouse squeaks
Essentially, yes.
and know if they'd be like a social butterfly or more of a loner as adults?
It wasn't just about listening, though. They used these really advanced computer analyses. You can think of kind of like deciphering a complex musical score
Right.
to find distinct patterns in those early sounds
Uh-huh.
that directly correlated with how they interacted socially later on.
So almost like those early sounds, they have like a hidden code
Yeah.
about their future social life.
Yes.
That's incredible. But okay, so where does this bumetanide thing fit in?
Yes, bumetanide. So bumetanide, it's a drug that's already used to treat some conditions like fluid buildup and high blood pressure.
Okay.
And the way it works is it affects the balance of chloride in the neurons,
Okay.
which plays a crucial role in how brain cells talk to each other.
So like tweaks.
Yeah, it kind of tweaks the way the brain sends signals, you could say.
Okay, but what's that got to do with Fragile X?
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. So the researchers gave bumetanide to pregnant mice carrying the Fragile X mutation.
Hmm.
And get this, they're pups. They actually showed normal social communication. Like the drug kind of reversed the effects of the mutation, at least in those really early stages.
That's incredible. It sounds like it could be like a game changer
It does, doesn't it?
for treating Fragile X, but I have a feeling it's not quite that simple.
Yeah, you're right to be cautious. There's a bit of a twist.
Yeah.
When they gave the same drug to mice after puberty, both the ones with Fragile X and typical mice, they actually showed decreased social interaction.
Wait, so it helps early on, but then later it could make things worse?
It seems that way.
That's really strange.
It is. It highlights how incredibly complex neurodevelopment really is. It seems like there are different mechanisms at play during different stages.
Yeah.
What might be good early on
Right.
could have unintended consequences later.
So bumetanide, huh? It's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Effective early on, but then maybe not so much later.
It's complicated, right?
Yeah.
It really does underscore how much we still don't know about how the brain develops.
Totally.
But this is actually where this research gets even more thought-provoking.
How so?
So you see this difference in how bumetanide affects those mice at different ages. It suggests that the the underlying mechanisms, the things that are actually happening at like a biological level with Fragile X,
Right.
they might actually be changing
Yeah.
throughout development.
So like what works in the early stages,
Thank you.
like when the brain is first forming,
Yeah,
might not be the right approach later on.
exactly.
Mm. But okay, let's go back to that amazing discovery about predicting social behavior just from like baby mouse sounds.
Yeah.
I mean, could we actually do that with humans? Like, could we listen to a baby babble
Right.
and get some clues about like how they'll develop socially?
That is a question that researchers are really actively exploring right now.
Wow.
Imagine like the possibilities. If we could identify babies who might be at risk for Fragile X
Yeah.
or other neurodevelopmental disorders just based on like, how they're communicating early on.
Wow.
We could maybe intervene sooner,
Yeah.
potentially even change the whole trajectory of, how they develop.
That would be revolutionary.
Wouldn't it?
But I'm guessing it's not as simple as just recording a baby, and then running it through like some algorithm.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There are a lot of hurdles to overcome. I mean, for one thing, human language,
Right. Yeah.
human communication, it's way more complex
For sure.
than those little mouse vocalizations.
Yeah.
The technology that we would need to analyze those sounds would need a lot of refinement
Yeah.
to be able to do that accurately. And then even if we could accurately pinpoint, those patterns
Right.
that are linked to future social behavior,
Yeah.
there are so many ethical questions.
Yeah. Like what?
What are the implications of, labeling a child as potentially having social difficulties just based on, how they sound early on?
Yeah.
Could that create like a self-fulfilling prophecy?
Uh-huh.
And then, you have to think about the parents, like the anxiety that might cause.
Yeah. Those are really important considerations.
Absolutely. Early identification could be incredibly beneficial.
Yeah.
But we have to proceed carefully,
Yeah.
sensitively, thoughtfully.
And we should use that knowledge responsibly.
Exactly.
Yeah. But let's go back to the science again for a minute. The fact that bumetanide had such different effects depending on the age of the mice.
Oh, yeah.
What does that tell us about like the mechanisms behind Fragile X?
That's a really great question.
Yeah.
I think it suggests that Fragile X and maybe many other neurodevelopmental disorders, they're not like static conditions.
Okay.
The brain is always evolving.
Yeah.
And the way genes express themselves can change over time.
Yep.
What's going on like at a molecular level in a young developing brain might be totally different from what's happening in an adolescent brain or an adult brain.
So it's not enough to find a drug that just like targets the mutation.
Right.
We need to understand this whole like dynamic interplay of genes and brain development and time.
It adds a whole other layer of complexity, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's exciting. It opens up these new avenues for research.
Like what?
If we can pinpoint the exact molecular mechanisms that are happening at each stage, then we might be able to develop much more targeted and effective therapies.
It's almost like we need like a roadmap, right? Like a roadmap of brain development.
Yes.
And it would highlight the critical periods where interventions could have like the biggest impact.
Exactly. It's like a treasure map to understanding the brain.
But how do we even start to map something so complex as the human brain?
Well, this is where, collaboration across different disciplines becomes super important. We need geneticists, we need neuroscientists, developmental psychologists, computer scientists, all working together, to unravel these mysteries.
So this research is really highlighting the power of that interdisciplinary approach.
For sure.
It seems like the future of understanding and treating these conditions, it's about breaking down those silos and bringing all these different minds together.
I totally agree.
That's really cool.
And this study, it's really just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
It's sparking a whole new wave of research that could fundamentally change how we approach neurodevelopmental disorders.
It's amazing to think that like we could be on the verge of this whole new era in understanding and treating these disorders. But let's zoom out for a second. We've been talking about Fragile X this whole time, but these insights like about early communication and how the brain develops.
Right.
Could they apply more broadly, like to other?
That's what's so exciting about this. This research really opens up a whole new way of thinking about, early childhood development in general.
Whoa, wow.
What if, like, all those early babbles,
Yeah.
those sounds babies make,
Yeah.
that we think are kind of just like random.
Yeah. Yeah. The cute little noises.
Exactly. What if those are actually giving us like really important clues about their future?
It's like we've been missing all this information.
Totally.
We just kind of think, oh, it's cute, but we don't really pay attention to it.
We tend to focus on like when they say their first word.
Right.
But what if there's like this whole world of information hidden in the sounds they're making before that even happens?
It really makes you think, huh?
It is a humbling thought.
It is.
Imagine if we could like crack the code, decode those early signals,
Yeah.
not just for Fragile X, but for like a whole spectrum of developmental pathways.
That's pretty mind-blowing. We've covered a lot today.
Yeah, well, yeah.
A lot of like really complex science, but if you had to like boil it down, what's the one big thing you want our listeners to walk away with?
That's a tough one. I think for me it's the fact that if scientists can predict social behavior based on early communication patterns in mice,
Yeah.
what does that mean for us, for humans? Does it change how we think about early childhood development?
You're giving everyone a lot to ponder.
I hope so.
For sure. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive, I think.
It has.
We learned about this really cutting-edge research on Fragile X,
Yeah.
the potential of this drug bumetanide,
Right.
and we even like thought about the future of early childhood development in general.
It's been great exploring all of this with you.
Absolutely. And to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. And we hope, this has sparked some curiosity.
Yeah.
Maybe you learned something new about this amazing world of brain development
Yeah.
and the power of early communication.
For sure.
We'll see you next time.